Hello everyone, how are you doing? Hope you're doing well. Today we're going to talk about another myth of yoga, and that is yoga. Let me come a little bit closer. And that is yoga is just stretching. Yes, yes, this is a popular belief, that yoga is just stretching, and yoga is just relaxation, because when you stretch, you relax, not nothing further from the truth. Yoga stretching is part of yoga. That's for sure. But yoga is not just stretching. In fact, you have some yoga classes, depending on the type of yoga that you do, depending on the type of the elements of yoga that you inject into your class. You may not have stretching at all. you know if you do a yoga session, where you just, let's say, you warm up a little bit, your face, you rotate a little bit your wrist, and you smile, you do smile a little bit, and you massage a little bit your head, your temples, your ears, like 5-10 minutes, and then you sit and meditate for about an hour, 50 minutes, and then you have an hour of your class. That's a yoga class, and we didn't have any stretching there. Maybe the ears. Just kidding. We didn't have any stretching there, and we have practiced yoga. So it is very important to understand what yoga is. Remember that there are different aspects of yoga. There are asanas, there's the meditation part, there's the wisdom part, there's devotional part, which is more the mantras singing, the bhakti yoga, where we just surrender, to something greater than ourselves, and that's yoga. You become, in union with yourself, and with the people that are around you. If you are in a room, and if you are not in a room, later on, as you uh, um, engage with people, you are much more in harmony, much more in balance. And that is yoga is it's a science. I like very much the definition of Sri Ravi Shankar. Say yoga is a science. It's a science of well-being, to blossom human potential. And when we think of us as human beings with a lot of potential, we cannot just think about, some stretchings, right? We think, about our, mental capabilities, physical capabilities, spiritual capabilities, emotional capabilities. Our whole well-being should be, in the best conditions, so that we can go through this life, and we can manage whatever life has throws at us, with a yogic mindset, in a yogi style. Remember that yoga is a lifestyle, is a way of living, it's a way of experiencing life, a way of going through life, and when we think again about the physical part, we may have some yoga classes, where we may not do stretching at all. If we are focusing more on strength, you know we may have some classes that are very cardio. You work a lot on your cardio. If you do some chaturangas, like 10 chaturanga, one after the other, and so that can be quite intense, and you don't stretch that much, and you do stretch a little bit, but it's not, I wouldn't really call it stretching. So depending on the yoga class, depending on the day, depending on the teacher, the ideal thing, when you practice yoga, when you, let's say, you practice yoga in your fitness studio, the ideal thing really is to have, it's the teacher, if you is to have a teacher. If you have like one teacher who teaches like three classes, A very good teacher will balance, out, in some classes you may focus a little bit more on stretching. In some days you may focus a little bit more on strength. In other classes you may have a little bit more of elements of breathing. Other classes a little bit more meditative. Maybe in a 1 hour class, instead of doing like 5 minutes meditation at the end, you may do 10 minutes, or even 15 minutes. It depends. So a good, a good yoga teacher, I will say, knows really how to spice up things so that you work holistically. Because remember, yoga, it's about blossoming our human capabilities, and we need to work on ourselves holistically. There are some days where we need a little bit more of stretching. There are some days where we need a little bit more of strength. Other days a little bit more of calmness, in our minds, a little bit more days where the power should be a little bit more on the breath, and that's when we practice, that's why it's so important to regularly practice yoga. You practice everyday yoga. It doesn't mean that every day you have to practice asanas, but every day you practice some elements of yoga. If it's just 10 minutes of meditation, you just close your eyes for 10 minutes, you breathe in and breathe out. 10 minutes of pranayamas, these breathing exercises. That's very good. Even in introspection, journaling, at the end of the day, just just being in silence and being in tune with yourself, and just thinking about, who did I meet today, what did I do today, how did I feel, how am I doing, you know not just go through the motions, just one activity through one activity after the other. And so, no, it's very important that we stay settled, we stay centered, we stay paused. And for that, we need to pause. Actually, it should be a daily activity, to spend a little bit of time, at least 10 minutes, just with ourselves, and asking ourselves, how was my day? How am I doing? How did I feel, when I met with such person? Or which thoughts are bothering me today? Going deeper, into our feelings, our emotions, our mind. How were my emotions today? Yeah, how were my thoughts? Was my mind too agitated? I had that monkey mind that didn't stop thinking. Is there a specific a thought that kept repeating and repeating and repeating? When we spend a little bit of time to journal and to meditate, then after, journal is very good, because when we journal, then we lie down, we can lie down, then just close our eyes, and then just relax in savasana. A very, very good and restorative posture. Asana, savasana, very powerful. So, as you can see, there are many, many beautiful aspects of yoga, and all of them should be practiced. Listening to wisdom, reading a book, that uplifts your spirit, wisdom specifically about the yoga sutras. Watch some YouTube videos about sutra interpretation, or listening, to people, the great yogis, the master. Listen to them talk about really the essence of yoga, the wisdom of yoga. That's all part of yoga, and it is beautiful, and it is beautiful. So there you have it. There you have it. Yoga is not just stretching, and I hope that every day you incorporate a little bit of yoga in your life. Okay. Thank you very much for watching this video, for being with me, and let me know what you think. Okay, let me know in your comments. Did I clarify this myth for you? Was this a myth you had? Was this a misunderstanding you had? Just let me know. Thank you very much for watching. Bye.